Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Talks Games, and welcome to 2025, and with it, a new wave of Nintendo predictions. Every year on this channel, I like to go over 10 predictions for Nintendo in the following year. We've been doing this since 2021, but before we get into my predictions for 2025, we need to look back at what I said in January of 2024. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, it's all in good fun. Usually, I like to throw in a couple of wild ones. There were some that I was just blatantly wrong about. There were some predictions that I would maybe give myself like half a point for, but before we get into the new predictions, let's go over the 10 I made last year. So the first thing I did was I gave a hardware prediction. Where will the Switch be at in terms of hardware sales? I said that it would be at around 145 to 150 million. At that point, when I made that video, it was at 132 million. So I was predicting around 13 to 18 million units sold in the next calendar year. And considering the Switch is currently at 146 million as of September 30th, we won't know the updated total for the holiday sales until I think end of January or maybe early February. I think I was right on the money with that. Maybe 5 million is too big of a gap to give myself, because 5 million, that's a big margin of error. So for this year, we'll go a little bit more specific. But yeah, I was pretty much right on that. Everybody else was saying that the Switch was going to fall off a cliff because they thought the Switch 2 was going to release this year. And I basically said in that video, like, I think it'll more or less sell about what it did in 2023, maybe a million or two less, which is looking like that's going to be the case. So we'll have to wait and see what those holiday sales are. But for that, I would say I was pretty much on the money. But, you know, 145 to 150 million, that's a pretty big window to give myself. And this is where my predictions just, they just fall off a cliff, man. I said there would be a Switch revision revealed and released. This was coming off of the rumors of like a Switch Mini. And the thing is, on the one hand, I could still see it. Like, I could still see this happening maybe even after the Switch 2 releases. We have seen that in the past. You know, the new 3DS XL came out after the Switch. The Wii Mini came out after the Wii U. So they have a history of doing that. Game Boy Micro after the DS. Though I would imagine there's less incentive to do that now with the Switch 2 because that will be backwards compatible. But if they want to get like a cheaper entry model in there, maybe they could still do it. But it's not looking likely for a Switch revision in 2025, and it certainly didn't happen in 2024. I also said that the Switch would get a price drop. Specifically, I said that they would maybe phase out the OG Switch model and drop the price of the OLED down to $300. So not really like an actual price drop, but more of like a functional thing where, you know, this higher tier model does go down, but also there's not like a cheaper entry point to getting a Switch. But either way, I was wrong. They did get much more aggressive with their bundling this year, where you had bundles with, you know, a full game like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and a full year of Switch Online. That was the first time we've ever seen them go that hard on bundles. But it seems like Nintendo does not want to drop the price of the Switch. Then we have my Switch 2 prediction. This one's really funny to look back on. So obviously, I'm in the minority here, where I've been saying it would release in 2025 for a very, very long time. Coming into 2024, when I made that video, no one was saying it was not releasing in 2024. However, I did say it would be announced in 2024. I said that they would announce it softly at their investor meeting in May. That did happen. I'll give myself credit for that. And then it would be fully revealed in October and released in March of 2025. So I was wrong about the full reveal. However, take that away. Spoiler alert, I still think it's coming out in March. So really, the only thing I was wrong about there, potentially, is that October reveal. I was right about it getting soft announced in May at their investor meeting through a tweet. I literally said it would be announced through a tweet. So kind of right, but also the main part of that was the reveal in October, and that was wrong. So I really expected them to reveal it this year. What can I say? I said that the Mario movie sequel would be announced, and that was it. I just said, you know what, they'll announce the Mario movie sequel. At this point, the Mario movie was only like 9 months old, so it wasn't like a guarantee, I would say, that they would announce it. They had also just announced the Zelda movie like 2 months prior, but this did happen on Mario Day this year. They had that little Mario Day presentation, and Miyamoto and Chris Meledandri, I believe his name is, from Illumination, came out and said that they're working on the sequel, and it will release in 2026. So I was right about that. I wish I'd been more specific. I wish I had predicted a release year for that, but regardless, they did announce a sequel. That's a point for me. This next one is hilarious. I was so comically wrong about this, but here's the thing. In 2023, Switch software was still like breaking records. Like franchise records were being broken. Pikmin 4 was the fastest selling Pikmin game of all time, quickly became the best selling Pikmin game. Mario Bros. Wonder, at the time of release, was the fastest selling Super Mario game ever. Tears of the Kingdom, same thing. I think it was the best selling Nintendo game in a 3-day period or something along those lines. Super Mario RPG sold really, really well at the gates. So coming into 2024, I was very headstrong in believing that Switch first-party software would continue to sell at that rate. That did not happen, not even remotely. Switch software, in my opinion, for 2024, fell off a cliff in a way that I was not expecting. Everybody was saying, oh, the Switch 2 is going to release, and that Switch hardware was going to start dying. So my prediction was that Princess Peach Showtime would sell 5 million copies. So the most recent data we have for this is as of June 30th, I believe, 2024. The game has shipped 1.3 million copies. So I was completely off base with this. This game completely underperformed based on what I was expecting. Even, looking at like Goodfield's other projects like Yoshi's Crafted World, that game sold over 3 million copies. And that was when the Switch install base was much smaller. But when you look at Thousand Year Door, when you look at Brothership, Echoes of Wisdom, of course, these more niche titles like Endless Ocean and Another Code, basically every game they released in 2024, I would say severely underperformed, with the exception of maybe Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which did sell over 1 million, and Mario Party Jamboree, which we don't have exact numbers for, but it looks like it's doing pretty well in Japan so far, at least. Most of their other games I'm not going to say they bombed, but they didn't do very well, and that is something I definitely was not expecting coming into 2024. So yeah, my Princess Peach Showtime 5 million prediction was totally wrong. It doesn't help that game is really mid. I get a half point for this. I knew it was a too easy of a prediction, so I wanted to spice it up a little bit. I said that a new Mario Party game would be announced, but also that a Mario Sports game would also release in 2024. I got one of those right, the obvious one. Mario Sports, I would also say, was kind of obvious, though. Like, we have never gone this long without a release from Camelot, so I really thought we would get like a baseball game or a Sports Ultra Mix kind of thing, but Mario Sports was MIA in 2024, so maybe 2025 will be the return of Mario Sports, but I don't even know if 2025 it'll happen, to be completely honest with you. This one was definitely me coping, but I said a new Tomodachi Life game would not release, but I said it would be announced. That did not happen. I said that a new 2D Zelda game would be announced and released, but I also specified that it would have a multiplayer focused. Half a point, I guess. If you really want to give me a point for that, I guess you could. But no multiplayer focus in Echoes of Wisdom, but we did get a new 2D Zelda game, not a remaster. It was a new game. And then finally, for my 10th prediction every year, I like to go super crazy with it. I think like 2 years ago, I said there would be like 3 Zelda games released or something. Last year, I said that, quote, no less than 3 Metroid games would release in 2024. Now, here's the thing with this. I think I was just off by a year because I'm pretty sure we're about to see this happen in 2025. I thought Metroid Prime 4 was going to release in 2024 as a Switch 1 exclusive. I truly believe that. And with that, I was saying like, well, we can get Prime 2, we can get Prime 3, and then Prime 4. Like that's 3 games right there. It's looking like that might happen in 2025, so I was just a year off. We'll see if that actually happens. I'm not going to reuse that prediction because that would be lame, because I think it's gotten extremely more likely that will happen in 2025, now that we know for sure 1 is releasing, and then, you just have to fill 2 more in there. I was also trying to be a little cute with it because I think at that point Zero Mission hadn't released on Switch Online, and I figured that I could count that as 1, but yeah, 3 Metroid games did not release in 2024. You could argue 1 because of Zero Mission, but even that's, that's just NSO. So those were my predictions for last year. I would say that's the worst I've ever done in terms of these predictions, but it's all in good fun. Let's go ahead and talk about 2025 and where I think Nintendo will go, what moves they'll make, and let's just get into it. Now, I think this year is even harder to predict because, we're going to have the answers to a lot of this stuff in the coming weeks, but for my first prediction, I always like to do sales. Now we have to equate Switch 2 into it. So for the first part of this, Switch 1, how is the Switch 1 going to sell by this time next year? So really, as of September 30th, that's when we get our last numbers. The Switch is currently at 146 million as of September 30th. I think by this time next year, when I make the 2026 predictions video, the Switch 1 will be at about 157 million units. Now, this is the issue with this prediction. We don't know what it did in the holiday period. Maybe they had a freaking banging holiday. I know in Japan, the Switch was actually selling better week to week in Japan this year versus 2023, which is crazy, but that's not going to translate to every part of the world. So my prediction is this. I think by September 30th of next year, the Switch 1 will be at 157 million units. I would assume the Switch is currently right around 149, 150 at this exact moment. We'll know in a few weeks. I think by September 30th, it will be at 157. That's my prediction. I'm not doing the big 5 million range this time. I want to be a little bit more specific, and we'll see how close I am to being right on that one. And then for the Switch 2, this one's a complete shot in the dark. I was looking at, it looks like the Switch sold about, I want to say like 17.5 million in the first 13 months on the market because it released in early March. This comes down to when this thing actually releases. This depends on what games they have, if they can actually handle the scalpers and the stock and everything. So I will just say this for Switch 2 as our first year predictions for the Switch 2 sales. I think by the time I make this video next year, the Switch 2 will be at we'll say 15 million, because that's as of September 30th, unless they announce numbers over the holiday period. 15 million, that is like 2 million a month. That might be high. It's really hard to predict like the first year of a console sale. So kind of a shot in the dark. I didn't do that much research on like how do Nintendo consoles usually sell in the first year, but if the Switch did 17.5 million or so in the first year and some change, if they actually have the stock issues figured out, the Switch 2, I feel like should have no issue doing more than that. But of course, we're talking September 30th, so I'm gonna say 15 million. Prediction number 2 for 2025. This one's maybe a little bit vague for your liking. However, I think that Nintendo Switch 1 will see 8 first-party releases from Nintendo. We currently know about 4: Donkey Kong, Xenoblade X, Pokemon Legends ZA, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Even though those last 2 may very well be cross-gen games, we know they're releasing on the Switch 1. So I'm saying I think there will only be 4 more games that we don't know about for the Switch 1 next year, because I think that the Switch 2 is going to release pretty early in the year, as we'll get to in just a minute. So I think we're looking at like 4 more on top of what we know. Maybe it'll be closer to 10 games total. This would still make it the least amount of releases in a year. And if Prime 4 releases, let's say by June, and Pokemon Legends ZA is their holiday title, you really don't have that many months you need to fill in with Switch 1 software, especially because a lot of their marketing and attention is going to be focused on Switch 2 games. So I'm going to say 8 games for the Switch 1 in 2025. And that's a risky one, especially because we're talking about Prime 2 and 3 releasing, which is 2 games right there. So maybe even only 2 more on top of that. But between that, maybe the Kirby remake, maybe Fire Emblem remake, and then, yeah, Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4, that's probably about right. I think like 8 games in 2025. Okay, these next few we are going to know within a few weeks. I imagine maybe even within like a week or 2. But my third prediction for the year is that the Switch 2 will release in March. I know, I'm putting my chips in. I don't know, man. Maybe this won't happen. Maybe it'll be April. Maybe it'll be May. Maybe it'll be June. It could be any month of the year. However, I'm going to hope and I'm going to cope for a March release for this console. I'm not going to put an exact date on it, but I would say before Xenoblade X, which is March 20th. I think the Switch 2 is going to have a very, very quick marketing blitz from probably, like next week, honestly, when we're recording this video. And then, from there into March, we will see this thing released. This one, I'm probably wrong about, but I want to be right, which is why I'm putting it in this video. I'm willing it into existence. And alongside that, prediction number 4, the Switch 2's price points. Ooh, this one's tough because I think for a lot of people, the obvious prediction is 400 USD, which almost tells me that I want to go higher. I don't really want to give Nintendo the benefit of the doubt, so I almost want to say 450, but I think I'm settled on 400. I think it's possible. 450 is definitely possible. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. People are saying like, oh, there's no way they go above 400. I don't think it's unlikely that they go 450, but I'm going to predict 400. Once again, I want to will that into existence. I don't want this thing pushing the 450, 500. 500 I think is out of the question, but 450 could happen, but I'm going to say 400 for the price of the Switch 2. That's my 4th prediction. And then for my 5th prediction, I've talked about this a lot over the past couple of weeks. Let's talk launch titles. I think Metroid Prime 4 is the launch title. I have done a complete 180 on that prediction. For years, I was saying it doesn't make sense. I've been convinced. I have been convinced that Metroid Prime 4 is, in fact, the Switch 2 launch title. But maybe more importantly, we have another game that I think will launch alongside it, and that is a new IP from EPD4, the team that makes Switch Sports, the team that made 1-2 Switch and Nintendo Land, Nintendo's kind of experimental team. That is the true launch title. Metroid Prime is almost a side piece of that. Realistically, they will have a casual new IP that fills in that void of Nintendo Land, of 1-2 Switch. I was thinking, like, would it just be Switch Sports Resort or Switch Sports 2? I think they'll save that. I think that's like a 2026 thing. But for now, I think we will get Prime 4 and a new IP from EPD4 that maybe isn't like a tech demo showcase kind of game, but some sort of like, multiplayer casual thing from them. I think those will be your main 2. And of course, you'll have other stuff. You'll maybe have like a third-party exclusive here or there, maybe a couple indie games that Nintendo paid for exclusivity for. But in terms of like Nintendo first-party stuff, we'll have Prime 4 and we'll have a new EPD4 game. For my 6th prediction, I think that Nintendo will have 2 Game of the Year nominees at the Game Awards 2025. Now, 2025, I've been talking about this a lot over on my other channel. 2025 is shaping up to be an all-timer. GTA 6 is slated for next year. Monster Hunter Wilds, just a ton of other games that are all like very high-quality Game of the Year tier material. So I'm going to predict that Nintendo will have 2 Game of the Year nominees. I'm not going to say which, you know, we're talking 3D Mario, maybe Metroid Prime 4, maybe something else entirely. But I do think that when we get to November next year, they will have 2 games on that ballot out of 6 games. There's 6 nominees every year. 2 of those will be Nintendo games, just like we saw in 2017 with Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. They'll have 2 games on there this time around. Here's a fun one. I don't want to only do video game stuff here. You know, Nintendo's bigger than just games now. So I like to throw a movie prediction in every year. So I don't think they'll announce any more movies. I think they're probably cooking more movies, but I don't think they'll actually announce anything else. However, I do think that by the end of the year, this is tricky because we're probably going to get a lot of Mario Movie 2 news in 2025. In fact, we kind of know we will because the movie's coming out in spring 2026. So we'll be getting a trailer for that before the end of the year. That's not my prediction, though. Beyond the Mario Movie 2 stuff, I think that the Zelda movie cast will be announced. I think this will likely happen in, let's say, a September Direct, similar to what happened with the Mario movie cast. And this one's really exciting because it's going to be a live-action movie. You know, Chris Pratt being Mario and Jack Black as Bowser, that was crazy. Those are just voices. Whoever is playing live-action Link and live-action Zelda and Ganondorf, like, that's a way bigger deal. And while I'm not including this as part of my official prediction, like, I'm not going to dock points if this is not correct, I'm throwing it out there. I think Timothée Chalamet is going to play Link. Everybody's memeing about it being Tom Holland, and maybe it would be Tom Holland because, you know, Sony Pictures are doing this movie. He has a close relationship with them. Timothée Chalamet is a well-loved actor. He's actually in, like, really, really good movies. So I think Timothée Chalamet might be it, but I'm not counting that as a part of the actual prediction. The prediction is that the Zelda movie cast will be announced in 2025, and maybe a date will be thrown on it for, like, I don't know, let's say 2027. Sometime in 2027, we'll see that movie release. Prediction number 8. I'm going to be a little bit vague here again, but I think we will see a completely unexpected franchise revival. Now, the question is, do I count remakes and remasters, or does it have to be a new entry? In 2024, we saw so many revivals, right? We saw another Code remake. We saw a new entry in the Endless Ocean series, and we got a new entry in the Famicom Detective Club series. So I would say another Code, that's a revival, right? Even if it was just a remake, the fact that they made a new thing at all and with that branding is crazy to me. So my vague prediction is that we will get a completely unexpected franchise revival. My off-the-table prediction for what that will actually be, you know, I'm thinking Pandora's Tower. I'm thinking Last Story. What I'm really thinking is Sin and Punishment. I think Sin and Punishment will see a revival in 2025. This will be a Switch 1 game, certainly. I don't think it's going to be like a big budget Switch 2 thing. And it might even just be a remake or a remaster of the Wii version, but they've been really good about going back to these random old franchises, and they've been on a huge kick of remastering Wii titles, specifically Sin and Punishment. Star Successor is a very well-loved kind of cult classic on the Wii. I think it's a good fit for the Switch in its final full year on the market. Prediction number 9, I am stealing from last year. Tomodachi Life, man. It's got to happen. I don't even know if I believe it at this point, but I'm going to will it into existence every year. We are getting a new Tomodachi Life announced this year. Not released. It will not release in 2025. It will be announced, though. In the September Direct, you will see a Tomodachi Life either remake or sequel announced for the Switch 2. This is absolutely hopium, but it's gotta happen. Bring back Tomodachi Life, Nintendo. I am begging you. And then finally, for our 10th prediction of 2025, like I said earlier, I like to go crazy with one, like an absolutely stupid prediction. Last year, it was that there would be 3 Metroid games released. I'm not gonna say how many games will be released this year. However, I am going to say this. I think that within the calendar year of 2025, for the Nintendo Switch 2, we will see a new 3D Mario game, a Mario Kart game, a Splatoon game, an Animal Crossing game, and whatever Monolith Soft is cooking up next. I think all of those games are going to be announced next year. And frankly, outside of Splatoon and Animal Crossing, I think that's pretty much expected a little bit. Maybe Monolith Soft isn't quite ready, but Splatoon or Animal Crossing, that's the running thing, right? We're going to get Splatoon or Animal Crossing in 2025. I think they'll announce both of them. That's probably not going to happen, but you know what? We got to get crazy with the final one. I was almost tempted. Should I make it even more specific? Like, should I add there will be a Fire Emblem thing and a Kirby thing as well? Because I think those will happen. I think we will get Fire Emblem remake and a Kirby Planet Robobot remaster or whatever, right? So I'm not going to go that crazy, but the actual prediction is 3D Mario, Mario Kart, Splatoon, Animal Crossing, and Monolith Soft's next major project are all going to be announced in 2025. So that is going to do it for this year's predictions video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of my predictions. Like I said, it's all in good fun. We'll see how I did next year, next January, how many I got right, how many I got wrong. Maybe they'll all be wrong, but I don't think so. I think Outside of the Switch 2 stuff, I'm actually pretty confident. The release month and the price point, those are all up in the air right now, and we will know the answer to those in probably a few weeks. But other than that, I think I'm feeling pretty good about a lot of these. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What are your predictions for Nintendo in 2025? You don't have to do 10, but like if you wanted to go over, kind of mimic some of mine, what are your predictions for the Switch sales numbers in 2025, the price point of the Switch 2, the release month, how many new Switch games will we see released in 2025? Let's get a discussion going in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch content coverage, theory, speculation, discussion, to all of that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my other Nintendo collecting channel at It's Amiibo. That'll be linked down below. Until next time, folks, peace.